Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The series starts with sirens blaring everywhere, and these sirens are telling everyone at home to evacuate immediately and go to the army's area. A virus appeared that spreads among people through bites and other means, turning people into zombies. They're very fast and very strong, and as soon as someone gets bitten, they usually turn in a very short time. We see a family consisting of the mother, Rose, her daughter Anna, and the father. This family is important because their community and everything they want is to stick together, and they ran among many families running around them until they reached the area where the army had cars to carry people to isolated and safe areas. The thing is, before the army lets you on the car, they check your medical papers to make sure you're healthy and not bitten. They check you and then let you on. So the little girl was the first to get on the car, but they didn't let the father on. The officer felt something wasn't right with the father's eyes, so they pulled him aside and searched him, and found he'd been bitten on his stomach and was hiding it. So immediately, they shot him, then his wife, and took their car for themselves and the whole army, and left with the people they had. The problem here is that they left and took Rose's little daughter with them. Of course, Rose kept crying but didn't know what to do except to go into a house nearby with her husband and hide there, because the army was currently throwing bombs on the areas they'd left to get rid of the zombies. But suddenly, she found that nothing had hit here or there at all. So that meant nothing was going to hit this area yet. So she told her husband, "We have to go after our daughter. We know that the army will make a military base at the stadium. We just need to get there." So Rose quickly went to see if there was anything in the kitchen of that house to take with them. Suddenly, she found her husband had turned, and he immediately started chasing her, and she ran away from him until she got out of the house and kept running like that. But the road ahead was blocked, and he was about to catch her, but thank God, at the last moment, a soldier named Spears came and killed the zombie and saved her. Spears is a thief, a con man, a killer, or maybe all three at once. That's why a group of soldiers had caught him despite the apocalypse, and they insisted on taking him to trial. At this time, the world wasn't 100% chaos yet. The army was still operating. The soldiers took him and went into one of the houses they found. The commander arrived with this criminal and another soldier. He told the soldier, "Keep an eye on him. I'm going to get a vehicle with your colleague and we'll be back." As soon as the commander left, the criminal tried to talk to the soldier and distract him, saying he wanted to use the bathroom. The soldier let him in, and quickly he stole his gun and started shooting him, then finished him off with a bullet, took his military uniform, and escaped. He became known as Spears because he took that uniform, which originally belonged to the soldier named Spears. Anyway, Spears the criminal saw Rose and saved her. At that moment, Spears genuinely wanted to help Rose get to her daughter, so they went together to the city gate. The city was where the army had built a wall and an iron gate, not letting anyone cross the area. It had become a restricted zone. But the army couldn't stop Rose and Spears because there were so many people around them. So they overran the army, opened the gates, and escaped. At that moment, when Rose, Spears, and everyone else escaped, they saw a car that everyone wanted because it had gasoline. Someone quickly got in and drove away with it. Spears and Rose were a bit upset because there was no other vehicle with gas around, so they kept walking. At this point, there were two people with them. One was a mute man named Ryan, and the other was named Lance. Both decided to go with Rose and Spears because there was no one else around, so they didn't want to go alone and went with them. The man who took the car and drove off is named William, and with him in the car is a woman named Sun and another older woman named Barbara. William is a good guy, but right now, he's a car thief and wants to go get his family in another city. At the same time, Sun is just trying to reach the part of the stadium the army controls. She barely speaks English and has no one in the stadium. She's just trying to survive. Anyway, he got to know all of them, decided to take them with him, and continued on his way. The thing is, suddenly, as they were driving, they saw another black car almost following them. They sped up to get away and turned down a street as fast as they could without paying attention. Suddenly, they were confronted by a group of people who threw Molotov at them because they wanted the car. William kept driving as fast as he could until thankfully he got out of that street. But as soon as he did, William realized something was stuck under the car. He must have run over something while driving. Sun got out to check the car and saw a zombie stuck under it, so she started to pull it out. At that moment, zombies saw them from a distance and started running toward them, so they rushed to get back in the car. The zombie kept chasing them until it got in the car and tried to bite William, but thankfully William threw it out and ran it over, and the black car came back and kept following William, and no one got out of it. William realized at that moment that the people in the black car wanted to rob him and his group and take the gasoline he had. All the gasoline at all the stations has run out. William ran with the car and the black car chased after him, and they kept going like that. They even started bumping into each other so that one of them would flip over. But unfortunately, they focused more on hitting each other than on the road, so both of them crashed into a giant truck that was in front of them. Barbara was thrown out of the car and died immediately. Everyone was devastated. They quickly regained their composure and saw that Barbara had turned, so they got out, William with them, and ran away from the place. The black car still had 3 people in good condition, so they took each other and ran away too, because their 4th friend, who was driving, died in the crash and turned into a zombie and is now chasing after them. At that time, Son and William entered a restaurant that was on the way, and they refused to close the restaurant door until the other 3 came in too. Indeed, they all entered, and now they're all trapped together in this restaurant, and we still don't know what they'll do. Nevertheless, they're all locked together in this restaurant, and we don't know what they'll do about the zombies standing outside, and they don't want to go out. Rose and Spears were walking at that time, trying to reach the professor, and at the same time looking for a car here and there to continue their journey. But as usual, they found nothing, so they kept going until night fell on them. They found a school in the street and felt it might be safe, so they all went in and walked around. They didn't find anyone, so they gathered any supplies of food, drink, and medicine, and decided to spend the night in one of the rooms. They went and sat upstairs in one of the rooms and decided to stay there for the night and continue their way in the morning. They all slept, but woke up in the morning to a sound outside. Rose woke everyone up quickly, and they went outside and found a child. As soon as he saw them, he ran away, and everyone was confused about whether they should go after him and look for him or not. Honestly, they all wanted to look for that child, and if there were other children, find them and take them with them, instead of letting them die here, especially Ryan, who wanted to search the most. But the problem was that Spears wanted to leave because he felt there was a trap involved. But in the end, they agreed when Rose said they would split into 2 teams, and each pair would look for the child. Then they would leave. So Rose went with Ryan, and Spears with Lance. Rose and Ryan walked for a while until they reached the bathrooms. There, Ryan saw a scene that made him run away in fear. Rose looked too, and saw that the scene was of children and adults killed and thrown there, not zombies, but murdered. She ran after Ryan but couldn't find him. He had suddenly disappeared. She kept searching, but suddenly heard a sound coming from one of the rooms. She went in and followed the sound, but found it was just a recording. The child was tricking her. When she tried to run away, someone locked the door on her. On the other side, Ryan was also walking, terrified, until he finally found the child, but he also found a group of children, not just that one, and their leader, who was also a child but a bit older. The leader blindfolded Ryan and took him to their base in the school, where there were many children playing, cooking, working, and doing many things to survive. But the strangest thing was that they had imprisoned and were torturing him. Without going into too many details, it was clear these children were mentally disturbed. Meanwhile, Lance and Spears kept walking until they reached the school gate and tried to open it, but it was locked. They ran around everywhere looking for a key, until Lance accidentally went through a door that locked behind him, leaving Spears outside. Spears called for Lance, but he didn't answer, so Spears kept searching until he finally found Rose and got her out of the room where she was trapped. Just as they were about to leave, they heard another child's voice and followed it, until they found themselves face to face with a group of children and their leader, who had a gun. Spears raised his gun at them, but lowered it immediately when he saw they had Ryan. Rose immediately told them they would surrender if they gave them Ryan. The leader grabbed a gun and threatened to kill Ryan if he moved. Ryan can't speak or hear, so when they took the bag off his head and he saw Rose, he ran to her in joy. Suddenly, shots were fired, and the children ran away from the place. Rose and Spears didn't have time to grieve for Ryan because he immediately turned into a zombie and started chasing them everywhere. Meanwhile, the children were watching from a house and were happy about what was happening. Anyway, Spears and Rose fired a lot at the zombie but couldn't hit its head, so it kept chasing them. They headed for the exit door, and thankfully, a stranger passing by outside the school opened it for them and let them out, then closed the door again behind them. So Spears and Rose got out of the school, but they lost 2 of their friends. Then, they all moved on together. Lance didn't actually die. The door just locked on him and had fainted because when the door closed, it hit him hard and he passed out. When he woke up, he started calling out here and there, but Spears and Rose had already left. He managed to get out of the room and everyone was running after each other. Of course, Carmen escaped at that moment. Meanwhile, Rose was in the room where the guard had left her, but after a while, he came back with bad intentions. But Lance was lying there next to the drunk people. Lance stood up to the guard and the guard didn't fight him. But when the power went out, a herd of zombies came at him and tore him apart. Rose quickly took Lance and they escaped, thankfully through the main door, where they found Earl waiting outside. He closed the door and set it on fire so everyone inside would die. As for Spears, a group of zombies appeared in front of him and started chasing him. He kept running and shooting at them until he finally escaped from the facility, closing the back door behind him. He went to the vent where the others were supposed to come out, but they were late because they were moving very slowly through the air ducts. But the problem was that because of all the shooting in the facility with so many zombies, some bullets accidentally fired. By mistake, unfortunately, several bullets hit the pipes that contained San and Manny, so Manny died and quickly turned into a zombie. He kept coming after Sunny. He was outside at the ventilation opening and immediately went to this zombie and got out Sun. Everyone in the facility literally died with Dafrina. At that moment, Spears took his weapons and ran to a place where they had all agreed before that they would gather and meet there. And suddenly everyone entered. Rose, Lance, Earl, William, and Carmen. At that moment, everyone was surprised. Spears was surprised by Lance, and Carmen was very upset about the death of her fiancé, Manny, but no one had time to be upset or surprised too much because a herd of zombies appeared, so they all quickly hid. But suddenly, a group of soldiers came and finished off all the zombies at once. So he went out to see who the soldiers were who had taken him and wanted to hand him over to trial, and Spears escaped from them before they could take him to trial, entering the facility from which they took the weapons. At that time, those soldiers were originally camped in a place near here and saw them from afar, so they waited for Spears and his friends until they finished their mission. Then they met them, as you can see. Spears didn't want to show that he was a criminal in front of his group or talk about his past, and even the two soldiers didn't say anything about Spears. Instead, they said they barely saw them outside and that they would come help them since they were heading to the stadium, so they'd go with them and protect them. But the two soldiers told them to follow them. The soldiers took them all to a garage underground and told them that they had to stay there for the night. There, they held a military trial because one of the soldiers claimed that Spears was a criminal from the beginning. Rose at that moment didn't know what to do, so she pulled out her gun and killed the two soldiers because at least she trusted Spears. After a while, everyone woke up, and Spears and Rose came back with all the soldiers' weapons. They told everyone that the soldiers had left them. They went to the stadium. As they walked, there were many other groups hiding just like them. They went to the professor and were not afraid of the zombies. They were with him, beside him, to the professor. And among all the people walking in the street, everyone was doing this. Any zombie that appeared, they killed it and moved on. They killed it and moved on. Until suddenly, one of the people in the street was grabbed by a zombie and bitten. By accident, the man fired a shot. Unfortunately, it hit Carmen right away. So she died and turned into a zombie. But chaos spread in moments in this quiet street, everywhere, and everyone started running. The number of zombies increased unnaturally everywhere. The bigger problem was that the army was bombing areas near the stadium, so the whole place was literally shaking every now and then. And let's not forget, at these moments, he got separated from the group and the army was throwing bombs next to him, and at the same time, large numbers of zombies were running after him, so he took off and escaped the place. As for Spears, Sano, Rose, and William, they entered the stadium with zombies behind them and all around them from every direction. They were fighting them left and right. The problem that happened was that his leg was injured and he couldn't walk, and if they didn't all run from there immediately, the zombies would eat them. So, against her will, Rose finished him off with a bullet to his head, and they kept running. Until they reached an iron door, they entered and closed it behind them, with the large numbers of zombies that were behind them. And that's it. They were the only ones who survived among all these people who were running with them. He was in and searched for them everywhere in the school until he gave up and was about to leave when suddenly he saw the children on the roof of the school holding the man they had been torturing earlier. They killed him and threw him off the roof. The man suddenly turned into a zombie and started chasing Lance everywhere. Anyway, Lance kept running until he finally managed to escape. After a while, he found a car and tried to start it, but it was broken, so he walked a bit further and found a supermarket. He went inside. The supermarket was full of everything. Lance happily started picking up supplies, but suddenly the zombie appeared to him again and he continued running. And he ran after him until Lance got on top of a bus school that was there, and he stayed on it powerless and literally did not know what to do. Anyway, Lance got out of the car and ran away again until he saw a guy in the street who kept saying, "Help me." Lance didn't wait for him to reply and went back into the supermarket and hid there. At that moment, the zombies entered. The guy Lance had seen a while ago came and kept fighting with the zombie until he finally finished him off. At that moment, Lance went out to check on the guy, but unfortunately, he found him attacked. Lance grabbed an extinguisher that was next to him and finished off the guy, continued walking without a goal. We go back to San William and the one with him. Sano William is currently imprisoned with 3 people, the owners of the black car who tried to kill them before. Because quite simply, some people died in the car accident that happened a while ago, and therefore the zombies are outside, and they insist that they won't leave until they eat everyone. The 3 with San and William are one who is a garbage man named Phil, and 2 engaged people, one named Manny and the other named Carmel. The idea here is that they all didn't know what to do, so all they were doing was fighting with each other. and it remained until things got out of hand between them. At that moment, they all agreed with each other that they would cooperate and go out to the zombies and finish them off since they were only two of them, nothing more. They set the plan, and it was as follows. San would keep banging on the window to make them lie to her, and the rest would take whatever was in the restaurant and go kill those zombies from outside. And that's what happened. San started banging on the door, and at the same time, Carmel and her fiancé, Manny, William, and Phil all went out to the zombies and started fighting with them. But unfortunately, they found themselves unable to control them, so they quickly went back to the restaurant. They sat upset and did not know what to do to leave. Very soon their food might run out and they would all die. Phil says there was no solution except to give these zombies some food to eat until we escape. We have to do this because I heard there is a group of zombies coming from the same road. Phil wanted to sacrifice San and throw her to the zombies. And the biggest reason for this is that she doesn't know how to speak English. Carmen and Manny stood with her and agreed because they're all friends. But Willa didn't agree and raised his weapon at them and threatened them all. But suddenly, while they were all talking, San noticed that there was a small wound on Phil, so it could be contaminated by the zombies. Manny and Carmen, as soon as they found out, immediately started beating him up, and San and William joined in, then they threw him to the zombies outside. Either way, he could already be contaminated and turn into a zombie. Rose and Spears, from the moment they left the school, were literally walking with the strange man who helped them get out of the school, whose name is Earl. The problem here is that they walked a lot and didn't find food or water or a car or anything, so they were literally exhausted. But suddenly they stopped because they found a restaurant surrounded by some zombies. That's the restaurant where everyone was. And quickly Spears pulled out his gun and started shooting at the zombies. Manny, Carmen, and the rest came out and joined in, and together they kept fighting the zombies until they were all dead. Phil was with them too. At that moment, everyone looked at each other and decided to form a group and head to the stadium. But first, they needed weapons. So everyone entered the restaurant, ate, prepared themselves, and went together to a place Carmen knew had weapons. After some time, everyone finally arrived at the place with the weapons. They split into two groups and one person. The one person would stay back and wait in case something happened. Carmen and Rose would go with Manny through the main gate, and the rest would wait at the other gate until someone opened it for them. That's it. As soon as Manny reached the door, he spoke to the guard and asked, "What do you think of these girls?" The guy agreed immediately, opened the door, and let him in, because the place was basically a drug den. That's why Carmen said there were weapons. The guard took Rose in particular and put her in a room where everyone was drunk, and put Manny and the rest with the leader. When they reached Otto's door, he left them and walked away. Manny and Carmen quickly left the place and went to open the back door for Spears and everyone with him, letting them in. At this point, they split up again. Carmen went with William, while Spears, Manny, and San went to the weapons storage. Quickly and without delay, they gathered a large amount of weapons in bags. Spears took them all and had Manny and San take the bags of weapons and crawl through the ventilation ducts, which were supposed to lead outside so they could escape, while he went to look for the others and help them. At this moment, William and Carmen went to a different place and got separated, and we don't know what happened to them for now. The important thing is that William entered a room, the room with the place's electricity generators, and immediately cut the power to the whole place, and then they escaped again. At this moment, Carmen was sitting among all the people in the facility, waiting for the power to be cut. When the power went out, she pulled out her gun and killed someone there, who turned into a zombie. Until there was a huge herd of zombies, they kept walking cautiously in the place until they reached the stadium field. Unfortunately, Rose still didn't find her daughter nor anyone at all, until suddenly, in one of the stadium entrances, she found her daughter coming out from behind a man holding his weapon and running to her mother, or anyone, until suddenly, in one of the stadium entrances, her daughter came out from behind a man holding his weapon and ran to her mother. And the first season ends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos.